It's 5:30.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. 5:30 at the work session. Jessica.
You're right
Yeah,
later.
you're
The
right
camera's
in
directly
front of the
behind.
camera. Apologies.
There we go. We fixed the camera. So it's a normal Board of Education work session for December 7th. Ms. Hageman, we call the roll, please.
Mr. King,
Here.
Mrs. Reese,
Present.
Mrs. Sebastian,
I'm here.
Mr. Elam,
Here.
Mrs. Mansfield. Here.
Excellent. All right. Possible new agenda items, procedural?
I do not have any, Mr. Clerk.
No? All right. Any questions regarding the agenda? All right, moving right on to important dates to know under communications.
I only had one question. Are we still doing a facilities meeting since is GMP2 going to be ready then, or are we moving it to a different date?
They took bids. I don't know if it'll be ready by the 13th, but it's on the schedule in case they have it ready. We may need to do a special later that month if they aren't able to meet the December 13th.
So we're leaving it for now, but that may change between.
That
now
is
and-
subject to
Okay,
change.
just wanted to double check. Okay.
Because the big thing is making sure we have that,
Right.
all the bids in for the project, so.
No, I agree, but yeah. Okay, thanks.
Tomorrow's that National Honor Society induction ceremony in Bethlehem. I think it's kind of neat. Did they do 6:30 last year? I know previous years it was like during the school day.
Right.
So you had
Yes.
to come in, so I think that's kind of a nice adjustment, 6:30, potentially more family. Parents can be there, so.
I think they did it last year that way because of parents during school.
Oh, yeah, I bet they had a good turnout too, so.
Yeah.
That's probably why they kept it, high school concert facilities board.
In fact, funny story, my first year here, I didn't know it was in the morning, so I was all set and thankfully had talked to a friend and she's like, it's during the day. I was like, oh. It's like, why is it so late? It's 7:30 at night. She goes, it's not at night.
Yeah. So, and then January 10th is the new organizational and regular meeting and still in the new board members. So, all right, anything we need to add?
Hope somebody will break it down on the concert for me, give me a full report.
Are you gonna be gone?
I've got my own gig at 3:00 on the 12th.
I will do a phone call. I assure
All
you,
right.
I will be there. I will also be at the Kings Island performance the day before. And we'll make Kings Island Saturday at 6 o'clock.
All right, treasurer's item, turn over to you, Sam.
Okay, so it's the review of the November 16th, 2021 work session minutes. And then the November 22nd regular meeting minutes. Just need your review of those so we can get approval at the next board meeting. And these are the November bills that were paid. So your review, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Monthly financial report.
It's okay.
Is the bank reconciliation, and then of course, you know, it looks really good because we've got that 28+ million that's in Red Tree investment. That is building project money. That is not operating money. I always like to point that out. But we are doing well as far as operating money as well. But that 28 million is not ours to spend on salaries, benefits, and other things. But we're running in line where we're expected to run. So nothing that really caught me off guard or any surprises. So I was happy about that. So you've got all your color charts and reports. I added on to the end of this. This is again the detailed check register. So up for discussion, I don't know why you need it twice as part of the board packet and part of what you're approving for the month. So I would suggest that we eliminate this from the monthly board reports and sort of just add, if I can get down to it here because it's 45 pages. This is a cash summary report. This will show you all your cash balances in each fund.
I like
So
this. That's a lot.
To me, that's more important than having 2 copies of the check register, but whatever the board wants, we can continue to include the check register and do the cash summary, but it's entirely up to you. But this will show you all the separate accounts that the district has and all the available cash that's in each of those accounts at the end of the month.
What you have traditionally done?
I have traditionally done this cash summary report because I think it's important that everybody understand what's in and available in each of those funds.
Right.
So that to me has always been one of the things I always include in my board packets, just so that you're aware. It also helps you understand what accounts are what, because it gives you the description and it makes it a little easier, because school accounting is never easy, but yeah, it will at least help you understand what's rolling up into your amended certificates and all the other things that we do.
I agree. I find the duplication, I was sort of always like, why, but.
Yeah, I mean, if you're already approving the check register, I think in the board reports, you could just do the cash summary and then you'll be all set.
Is there ever a time when they would be like separated where we would say, oh, I really wish that cash or the check summary was here? Is there ever a time that would be an issue?
It's never been told to me. Nobody's ever said that to me as far as the board's concerned, but that's entire. I mean, I can continue doing it this way, either way. It just seems redundant to have it on there twice.
That's fine. If you don't see it's gonna be an issue down the road, then I'm perfectly fine with notifications.
Isn't that part of that? We didn't see the check register.
We saw this is her new system that gives it to us like this. I think we just had what we paid out for the month,
Yeah.
which showed checks, but it was all like in a big long run and there wasn't a summary.
Right. Yeah, this is a little more detailed than what the previous classic system would have given you, but yes,
Modifications
since
within
it's the same report that I'm putting here for your approval that shows all the checks for the month.
Right.
So just thought might be easier just to have the cash summary that shows what your cash balances are at the end of every month, because that was not part of your packet ever before.
Correct.
So
Or could we just have the cash summary report standalone under payment bills? I don't care, but for me, it's easier not to have to scroll through 50
Yeah.
pages.
oh yeah, I can
Change
put
the
it as
order.
part of the monthly financial reports and have it as a separate attachment.
I
I'm
would,
fine with
I
that
would just
too.
do that because
Yeah,
I mean, a
okay.
20-page report is enough for
That's
me.
one less step for me. I don't have to adjust my PDF and add pages, so I'm
As
happy
long as
with
it's
that.
Yeah, as
Just
long
let
as
her
it's
see
there.
it, as long as it's there in the agenda.
Right, you can have 2 attachments here, your November board reports and your cash summary.
Let's do that, because I mean, when you get 60 pages, it
Yeah.
just gets a little
Sure.
overwhelming.
Oh, I get it, yeah. So,
I'm
um,
always thinking to get that last
But
summary.
it'll still,
the
it'll
check
still be
register-
there for the community to look at.
yeah,
Yes.
the check register will remain right here under review of payment of bills.
Perfect.
Okay.
So that'll be available for everybody to see, and then this will just be split into 2. I'll do it for November 20, the December, what month am I in? December board meeting. I'll split them into 2 so you can see it that way.
Excellent.
Okay,
Thank
tax budgets are due. I was telling like, I haven't done a tax budget in 6 years because the county I was in didn't require one, but we can,
Oh, wow.
Miami County still requires a tax budget, so we're gonna do the abbreviated tax or alternative, it's abbreviated tax budget, which is what's been common here in Miami County, so we need your approval on this resolution in order to do that. And that's all I have for today. I
All right.
thought I was going fast and slowed down there for a minute.
You're
didn't I?
good,
Sorry.
great. All right, so questions?
I just have a question.
Mhm.
I think last time I asked this, and I don't know if you're gonna check, I can't remember the answer. They are still getting published on the website. The reports, the check register and the reports.
The check register is going to the Ohio checkbook. And I haven't seen where it's getting published on the website. It's on board docs, all the reports have been, but I have to go back and see, and if it's been published on the website, I haven't seen anything out there. Yeah, it's not that I'm aware of. So when you say that, what would you like to see out there? The monthly financial reports or?
We can we'll send you information. It probably hasn't been
Yeah,
updated
it used to be.
since Brennan left.
Yeah.
I'll send
I
you
don't-
the
I
page.
don't know that we need to dictate if it's in board docs, but somebody has to know to go there then. Probably be better if it was summarized here.
Yeah, it should be here for.
If we're at a standing link that just take people board docs, I think that would be preferable for
What
me.
about, I mean, even if you just had a a link there just to go to the online checkbook. Because you're gonna see everything in there.
But the online checkbook is less manageable. If you just want to see that, or like review what happened this month, the online checkbook is pretty good.
Okay.
I don't know if you've tried to use it, but
No,
it's great if you want to search for something but to get like just like review a month, it's not.
Yeah, one pay is one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something specific, think of some things, but if you're just looking for one something.
Yeah, so maybe board docs is.
No, I don't, I would rather see just.
It's much
here.
easier to find here
Yeah.
if you're just looking.
so you would just then look at, just throw it in board docs, once approved by the board. Put it in on the website in there.
So is Jacob ready to help me with websites?
Yeah,
And just-
yeah, he's been trained.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, excellent.
cool.
Too bad we didn't have that easy button.
I know, I need an easy button. I'm not real, I don't.
Just send it to board docs into there and everything's hunky-dory,
It's
right?
all right, I've got it all saved.
Yeah.
We can move it all out there. That's not a problem.
It's just, trying to understand, get something. You get to go take it and put it here and put it there and put it there.
Right.
Just cumbersome. Okay, any other questions for Tina?
I just had one because I didn't look. Did everything with the 5-year forecast get submitted, okay?
It did, yes.
Okay, I just didn't check out on the state site, so thank you for submitting that.
Well, I didn't, they wouldn't give me my sign on, so I had to have Gail. I actually had to have Jason from Meta submit it, but that's okay. We got it uploaded and submitted on time, right after
It's in there.
the board approved it, so. Did it at 10 o'clock at night.
May or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
We got it.
all right, Superintendent, Mr. Perks.
Yes, on the agenda for discussion this evening are several items. Letter A is appointment of President Pro Tempore. It's going to need to be some discussion amongst the collective board members in regards to who's going to serve as President Pro Tem and preside over the organizational meeting, which is held on
January 10th.
January 10th. So I don't know, is that something that you guys typically would do by next meeting?
At next meeting, we would do that. Yes.
All right, so you'll want to have some discussion amongst yourselves between now and then also at that next meeting, be able to set the time and dates for regular board meetings and also work sessions.
Wouldn't that be done in that the January?
Yeah,
meeting?
we've traditionally
That's the
done that.
organizational meeting, yeah.
Since we have new members coming on board and we have no idea what their schedule is.
And we can move that to the organization.
That would be
Is that
terrific.
not normal? That's when we've been doing it. Just, FYI, what's the normal procedure there?
Typically, it's done in the organizational meeting, but you guys threw me for a loop because you set your organizational meeting last year. So no, typically what will happen, what I've seen is in November, December, the board will set the organizational meeting for January.
Yeah.
And then in January, you set the rest of the meetings. And so I think what I confused on, because I said, we need to have something out there for the organizational meeting, and I think she put that out there.
Sure.
Thinking
Oh,
that's what it was, but you guys already had your organizational meeting scheduled, so I'll pay it for that, so.
That sounds good.
So then we
We'll
can,
move that
we
to
can
the
cross it off.
organization meeting, so that the new board member can,
Weigh in.
yeah.
The OSBA thing I read today said it's normally happens in December, but we've always done this in January. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's kind of unique. I mean, technically, right, the school year switches the end of, to 1 August is the new first day of the school year. So it's funny how the calendar year, the school year, the budget year. and-
All different,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's why it really wouldn't matter, but yeah, I'm good with waiting till January.
Okay, so just a quick recap, we'll set President Pro Tem next meeting, and then we'll schedule regular board meetings and work session date times at the organizational meeting on January 10th of 2022.
Correct.
Okay. Letter C is review of leave of absence. Would like to wish the very best to Carrie Livesay, as she will be on an FMLA leave of absence from March 8th through May 22nd of 2022.
Okay.
Livesay is an elementary teacher here in the district. Letter D is fairly lengthy. It has to do with review of Neola 40.1 fall 2021 update of school board policy. So I will go through each one of these individually and give a recap of those and try to hit the high level main premise of each of the policies as a first reading. This is a friendly reminder that you typically have 2 readings before you approve policies. So first on the agenda tonight is policy to be reviewed 0169.1. This has to do with public participation at board meetings. It allows the presiding officer at board meetings where public participation is permitted to regulate speakers if they become abusive, frivolous, and or harassing. It also prohibits visitors for signing up to speak on behalf of other people. That makes sense. Okay. Policy 1530, evaluation of principals and other administrators. This is some language changes due to state testing requirements this year. As you may or may not be aware of, student growth measures in the form of things like value added will not be used this year because of COVID and other various reasons. And so therefore, those student growth measures will not be factored into principal, teacher, or school counselor evaluations. I would fully anticipate that in the next several years or year, it'll probably come back. It's just a temporary brief. Policy 617. This is a combo one. So you have 613, 1617, 3217, and 4217. This has to do with school districts such as Bethel that have armed safety teams in the district. Recently, there was a Ohio court case, Gabbard versus Madison Local School District, which is down near the Cincinnati area, where parents filed a lawsuit against this Butler County district in regards to their ability to have armed staff members be on campus. Essentially, what came out of this rendering was that the definition of weapons has been updated to align with current law. And right now, there is legislation that's on in House Bill 99 that's been submitted last February to fix this definition of weapons to allow school districts to now bring back safety teams on campus until either the House or the Senate makes a decision on that. Districts are not allowed to have armed staff members on campus. It does not have any impact on our SRO. 2271, College Credit Plus. This one provides some additional flexibility for school districts to establish remediation-free options for students who may not have academically qualified, but based on recommendations from principals and teachers, they feel like he or she would do extremely well in a College Credit Plus program. It gives more flexibility for districts to allow those students to participate. So that's 2271. 2370 has to do with blended learning. This is a revised policy. It's now essentially allowing districts or requiring districts, excuse me, to have a blended policy in place in case we would have to go back to a remote learning setting. It's just a backup plan in case we would have to shut down for a pandemic or other various reasons. It also sets some parameters as far as school districts that if you do have to go to blended learning, you still are required to have an instructional calendar in place, and you must have at least 910 instructional hours to meet a full year's worth of academic studies in a district. Oh, okay. So I'm trying to keep in line here. Policy 5.
011.
Did I skip one?
No, nope.
You skipped,
Well, you
you
listed
covered
the 17,
3217 and
Okay.
4217.
So the next one is
That might be a typo, and it's 5111 and 5111.02.
5111.
I think that's a typo.
Okay, it might be. All right, so 5111.02 has to, 5111 and 5111.02 has to do with eligibility of residents and non-resident students. This essentially has to do with military families. We must provide some sort of technology-based education opportunity for military families as they transition from one base to another base or one location to another. Our Google Classrooms fits that bill, so we already have that in place. We're good to go there. It also makes special exceptions for military families to be immediately enrolled in school, and then you can get the appropriate paperwork after the fact, which is a little bit different than other families. And it also requires, which is another good one, we already have this in place as well. It requires districts now to have electronic enrollment processes in place. We already have that with Final Forms. So a majority of them we have in place. And it also provides us an opportunity to get military families into the district immediately, which we do all know that we have a number of military families in our district.
Are we required to provide technology? Did I read that correctly as they leave to, or did I misunderstand that?
The only thing I was told by our Neola rep is that the technology that we're required to provide be in the form of like a Google Classrooms.
Oh, okay.
So we have a platform to continue to educate them until they become fully enrolled in their.
I wasn't sure if we'd send a Chromebook or something.
No, we don't have to do
Okay,
that.
I just wanted to make sure because it was not
Yep.
clear. Thank you. Okay.
5200 has to do with attendance. As most folks know, there are attendance requirements with House Bill 410 in regards to the number of days that students can be either habitually or chronically truant. We do also now have additional language in here that allows us to still meet those same attendance requirements if we would have to go remote learning, which would require students, even though we're not in school, to still be enrolled in school and attending regular classroom sessions, which was a little bit of a problem when we had to go shut down. So, 5350. 5350 is revised, but it's also a new one. This comes out of the Save Students Act, which now requires districts at the start of the 23-24 school year to provide to students in health education classes 1 hour or the equivalent of one standard class period of education on the following topics: suicide awareness and prevention, safety training and violence prevention, and social inclusion. It also requires districts to provide evidence-based suicide awareness and prevention curriculum to staff during in-services. So there's some additional educational requirements that we need to follow part of education. 5464, early high school graduation. This one is probably not going to impact a significant number of students. We do have students that apply, not regularly, but occasionally for early graduation. They may want to graduate at Christmas of their senior year, or maybe once in a while at the end of their junior year. This would be for these once in a lifetime students that probably want to graduate maybe at the end of their 8th grade or 9th grade year, because they've acquired so many credits and they're super off the charts intelligent. And they want to get out of high school and start their college career at like 13 or 14. So awesome. We'll deal with one of those when we get one, but I don't know if you have any quite yet. So 5516 has to do with student hazing. This one primarily was put in place because of the higher education setting, colleges, and those type of junior colleges, technical schools. But it also does provide some additional definitions and coverages and requirements for K-12s. So essentially what it's saying is, if your district or your college or university is sued for hazing, you can't just say, oops, we didn't know it was going on. And you probably had an idea that it was going on in fraternities and sororities and athletics. So districts have to be more, and universities have to be more aware of what's going on in locker rooms and different entities that are school affiliated. 5360, this is a long update, so I apologize. 5630 has to do with PBIS, which is positive behavior intervention supports. This essentially provides some additional language in regards to the use of restraints and seclusions for those students who would probably be considered like ED, emotionally disturbed students. We typically educate those children off campus in alternative sites because we don't have the facilities here, but we still have to have the policies in place because we may have to transport them on our buses or our vans. So we have to have the appropriate training of seclusion and restraints for our staff that service those students, which we provide annually. 5722 has to do with, excuse me, we did not have that one on. Yep, 6114. I'll let Mrs. Hageman talk about that one.
So 6114 is just your federal funds guidelines on what you can and cannot spend money on using federal funds. Some updates because now there are some sticklers as far as capital expenditures. So anything that you're going to buy that might be inventoried or be considered a capital expenditure has to follow some new requirements. So those are required updates. We could complain, we can't do anything about it. 7300 is disposition of real estate property and personal property. It's just expanding the definition of what unused school facility is. If you you probably should know, but if you try to dispose of a school building, first has to go to a community school or, local school district. So now they're defining what a school building is. And that is saying that it has, if it's less than 60% of it is used for district, what did they say? Academic instruction, you can say that it's not, a school building. So that's pretty much the only adjustment to that is to define that. I am assuming there have been some arguments about why I have to do this if I'm only using 20% of the building for instruction, or something along those lines.
Okay.
Additional CFR reference on property inventory. CFR is your federal register. So there's some guidance there that says that anything that needs to be inventoried as far as federal funds are concerned is anything that one item that costs more than $5,000. So if you're going to purchase anything that requires $5,000 or more on one item, that you have to get their permission, pretty much the Ohio Department of Education, ODE's permission prior to making a purchase of more than 5,000 or more on there is pretty much how it reads. But it's just saying that their inventory process or policy is that it is not inventoried unless it's 5,000 or more. So it's not coded as a 600 object code or inventory unless it's over 5,000. So I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Burks.
Okay. 8330 is in regards to student records. It's a revised policy. It now indicates that unless the school district receives in writing from families not to release student emails, we are now asked to provide email addresses to military recruiters as part of directory information for students. So families can opt out of that. If they do not opt out, military recruiters ask for student email addresses, we can provide those. 8400 has to do with school safety. This is now a new requirement, which we are currently in the process of working on with our SRO of creating and utilizing a threat assessment team for our district. And more than likely, we'll have a threat assessment team for each of our buildings moving forward that will take a look at security measures, safety, door features, those kind of things as we constantly try to make our school safer for not only kiddos, but staff and families as well. 8462, student abuse and neglect. This ties into one that I talked about previously. It provides language in regards to evidence-based suicide awareness and prevention curriculum for staff and in-services by the Ohio Department of Education. It also requires every 2 years that we provide training to our nurses, our teachers, our counselors, our school site, our mental health providers, and our administrators in the district on those topics. The good news is we already have those things in place with our public school works trainings that our staff take annually. They're getting those annual trainings already. So I guess the good thing is in some regards, we are a little bit ahead of the curve in some of these areas that it's not going to be a huge change or impact to us. It's also required by the Ohio Department of Education that districts either have on their website or make it be well known to families, the phone number for Safer Ohio School Tip Line or any other anonymous reporting program of a district's choosing if somebody wants to report bullying or those types of activities in the district. So we're currently in the process of getting that in place as well. Policy 8600 has to do with transportation. This is one that, to be frank, I'm a little concerned about. This is a pretty significant change to transportation services, especially in a district that oftentimes has to double route bus routes because of lack of transportation drivers, which is nobody's fault. I think every district is experiencing it. But with the majority of our students or a high percentage of our students getting transported on buses, this is going to be a challenge for our district because we are now no longer, let me rephrase that. We are now required to deliver students no later than 30 minutes after the school day home, which is going to be a challenge when you double route. Some kids may not get home until 40, 45 minutes after school ends with the double route. So we're going to have to figure that one out. I'm not sure. I don't know if they took into account districts that have primarily rural agricultural base, not necessarily a city or a town around them where kids can walk and ride bikes. When you have 19 bus routes and you double route, that's very difficult to get kids home that quick if you have a driver out and can't find a sub.
I think even if you're on one of the longer routes, it's,
Yeah.
I think it
You're not
takes,
double routed.
I think my kids are on the bus for 31 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, it
Like when they're
Don't
picked
tell
up.
anybody.
And well, I mean, it's just that route, like just to
Right.
pick up and down
Right.
Ross and all the way around and getting back here, it's just, and traffic and all those other issues.
Yeah, so the statement, the wording reads exactly, districts are now required to deliver students no sooner than 30 minutes prior to the start of school and pick them up no later than 30 minutes after.
Yeah, but it's not the length of the route, it's they have to leave campus.
So they have to leave within 30 minutes.
Correct. Which is difficult with the double routing.
Okay, got it.
Right, but it's, I mean, they can be on
Oh.
the bus 45 minutes if they.
Yeah, it's not necessarily on the
just-
bus.
Oh, I was like, man, like,
Yeah.
yeah, going down the bus 30 minutes.
It's-
Make it hard on some places, yeah.
It's the pickup from school going home.
Okay.
That's gonna be the challenge with the double router.
That'll be the, little release.
And that's the recommended change in general. I mean, we're going from Neola's providing these to us. and-
Yeah, that's required
I
through
think-
Hospital 110.
These
Okay.
are, a lot of these are required, so.
Yeah. So if you got any recommendations on how to fix that, let me know.
Okay.
Besides, if you're out there and you want to drive a bus, we will take you, please.
Pay for your training.
Yeah, 8740 is on bonding. It just requires that we have to have some kind of insurance in place to protect the district against errors, omissions, fraudulent activity by its employees. We already have that in place with Ohio School Plan and Highland. So it's just confirming some districts don't have that in place, but that is part of our liability insurance. So we already meet those standards. And I think it adds the word property instead of, just money, it's money and property we're trying to protect. So we're one and the same. So other than that,
I do have one more on here, 8651, non-routine use of school bus. I think this is in response to 8600 and that 30-minute. It now allows districts to seek out various private and public government and nonprofit entities to provide transportation using the school district's fleet in order to help them fulfill activities in times of emergency. So if you're in a serious information or a situation where 5 or 6 drivers are out because of COVID, you can start to use military or government if they're willing to transport to help get kids places. So those are the fall updates, pretty lengthy. Yeah.
So are all of those, these came from Neola though, right? We didn't initiate
No,
their house.
And was it our choice? There were 2 or 3 we rejected. Was that our choice or?
yes,
Obviously,
yeah, a
those
couple
were-
of them didn't apply to us. They applied to our
Okay, I
district.
just wanted to clarify because
Yeah.
I'm like,
We had 2 that were rejected. One had to do with care of students with diabetes. One had to do with social media sponsored publications and productions. So we don't give students full issue social media accounts and allow them to be in charge of it. So we didn't need it.
Yeah.
So,
thank you. Donald.
yeah, we had 2 that were rejected. Any questions on those policies? I'm sure you guys can take a look back at them, and if you have questions at the next meeting, you can.
I thought that was a great summary though.
Yes, thank you for doing that.
For
The
the,
next meeting will be the second reading.
Correct. Yeah.
for the one that was opting out with recruiters, it was also for universities, right?
Let me look at my notes that I have. You're talking about the
Just to kind of
email
get where My
addresses?
question is, I guess, yeah, for email addresses, and I think it was like all director information. I think it was just we're adding email addresses, but it's. all the
What
director
I have
information.
is,
that right?
if the district issues student email addresses, it must release such email addresses to military recruiters as part of directory information as requested unless prohibited by student or parent request in writing.
So I think the way I read the policy, it was sort of like just kind of tucking in email as like a new thing we might be putting with director information, but it was all director information that would be going to
Okay,
recruiters and I think it says and universities.
okay, I'll have to look into that.
And that's,
More
that's
detail.
fine, it's perfectly fine. I think just, my thinking is that clearly, living where we live, we probably have some folks that are maybe super loyal to one branch of the military over others. I think that's fair to say, right?
Fair, yes.
Where maybe, because I think it goes on to say that it's opt out unless they contact you and get permission first.
Yeah,
So I think maybe some folks may want to take advantage of that and say, only these branches can contact me, or only these universities can contact me. I mean, we even have people who are like super Ohio State laws, if anybody with permission calls me, it's no go, like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Things like that could be a thing. So
I think
it's
one of
just
our
good to
easiest
educate
ways,
folks.
yeah, I think one of our easiest ways to address this would probably be through the final forms.
That's what I'm hoping, is that we can put
And
something
having
in
some
there.
sort of a sign off sheet there, if parents don't want it, period.
Right.
or An opportunity for them just to list who they want to get information from.
Right, and then additionally, you would think as students become 18 among our seniors, they may
Yeah.
have the option to then opt back
Opt
in.
out, opt in or out.
If they choose to under the student side of things, so, you know, that's just something maybe we can address in final forms and make that more clear cut and let people know it exists.
That's the plan. We get regular updates from them, and I'm sure at our next online virtual meeting, I'll have that as a question, because I'm sure their other customers are probably gonna ask them the same thing.
Absolutely, I think the only thing I've opted into or out of is the media stuff, like, yeah, you can use my kid's photo or video or whatever, but I've never seen anything about anything else.
Well, that's because this is a new one, so
Sure.
it's,
I have one question too. On the one that has the 5,000, if it's over 5,000, I think it's inventory. Is that a new clip level? Or,
No, I mean, there was in 2000, I'm gonna say 18, 19, but don't quote me on that. There was a whole revision to federal procurement rules. And part of that change included, ODE was saying, Ohio Department of Ed was saying, we don't consider it inventory until it's $5,000. So your $200, $300 Chromebooks aren't inventory. So if you're using title funds for that, that's a supply. But if your policy, if the district's policy says anything that costs more than $300 must be inventory, then it still had to be coded as inventory and we had to send all that information on to ODE. So they've had that in place for a while. So I think this is their way of saying, excuse me, it's got to be $5,000 if you want to use federal funds. So they don't have to be tracking that and have to ask for additional paperwork and all that. So no, it's been 5,000 for a while. But district policies don't match that. I think our policy is 500. So it doesn't match that at all.
should we change that?
And that's entirely up to you. I mean, a Chromebook is now less than $300. But you're not depreciating that. You're putting that in a separate area to be inventoried and tracked in your technology department. I know a lot of districts will put it in their inventory system and just not depreciate it, but so it's just they're looking to reduce the number of capital expenditures on federal funds. And that's my opinion.
We have to be mindful too. I mean, I assume you guys, this is a big assumption on my part. So Justin, please correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end of the year, when I would inventory my classroom, there were things that had stickers and had to be inventoried and reported at the end of the year. Yes, they're still in my classroom versus things that are not, such
Right.
as I would inventory like a smart board, but, and a document camera that probably cost over that $300 or $500 limit, whatever our limit was. But I may not be going through other smaller items like my keyboard and things like that.
Right.
So we
Right.
want to be mindful of what we're going to be asking our staff to inventory. When we set that dollar amount, if we go down to like $100 or $300, our staff checklist at the end of the year gets enormous as well. So just something else to think about.
But so what's the downside of making the number higher though? Does that mean things are gonna start disappearing because they're no longer in
They're
the
still
inventory
going to
list?
need those things to work though. To do their job, they still need those things to be functional.
I
But
would
nobody
say
can
that
touch
you
it.
don't really need,
Your IT department.
your
They're
IT
gonna get-
department. I think technology is keeping track of all your
Correct.
Chromebooks. It's not in your
Correct.
inventory system. And so I've had a discussion with Mr. Cook. And we're gonna look at the way he's doing it and what's in the inventory system. And we're gonna look at how we're gonna check those off, because I know he and his team are planning on going around and manually making sure we've got every Chromebook and touching that and making sure that we're accounting for all of that. So, we're looking at new ways to do that. What goes in your inventory system really is things that should be that's gonna depreciate over years, right? So you keep track of that.
Yeah.
And right now, we've got a lot going in there because of the construction in progress, but yeah, so there's no pitfall either way, other than as Ms. Mansfield pointed out, your teachers, part of their ending thing is tell me what's in your classroom,
Yeah.
And do you want them telling you about every chair and every table? Or do you want them telling you about the big ticket items that are gonna be more difficult to replace?
Right, and our IT department was, and I'm sure here too, because Mr. Cook clearly was on the same IT department at that time. If someone was saying, oh, I need another, USB stick, or I need an HDMI cable, or whatever, at some point they're gonna say, you're not using this in your classroom, this is a problem. I mean, they're very good with their materials and their, keeping track of the little things that would be walking out the door. So, and making sure the staff has what they need without it being excessive and being abused.
Do any of those limits affect disposals? Because do we still have to vote on disposing of?
And a real property and personal property that's worth more than $10,000. The superintendent has the authority to dispose of, according to board policy, anything less worth less than 10,000, but anything at 10,000 or above requires board approval.
Okay, because I just remember
I would,
6 years ago, we did that like every couple of meetings, and I haven't seen that in ages. So it's fine. I don't think I need to see that level of
I
detail.
thought we did it last spring or summer for technology equipment. Did we approve a lengthy list for disposal?
and a cube,
Yes.
that together is probably worth more than 10,000, which is, But your policy
That's fine.
clearly states that the superintendent may dispose of, real property and personal property
And
worth
we
less
haven't, I
than
mean, we haven't really
10,000.
disposed of much besides technology because we're so hard up on classroom, we're using every piece of furniture that we have.
We have- Excuse me, isn't part of our policy that it has to be auctioned as well, or?
Oh, we did that.
Yeah, we
last
did
year
that. That's
with
why I'm asking. 'cause we
An
have a
auction
picture
of items
it.
that were in the farm barn. We had a number of items that were auctioned off, and I think we also auctioned off some old kitchen equipment as well.
Yeah, that's Ohio revised code that requires you to, how you can dispose of that property.
So he can declare it disposable, but he still is required.
We
by
still have to
the
follow the
procurement requirements to get rid of it. Yeah.
I'm calling 1-800.
He's not allowed to say, yeah, we're not having any more.
We're selling
put in
that
the
to you
trash.
for $2
Still
now.
have
We
you
still
do
have
it,
to
so.
take bids or,
Sells to any other governmental entity.
Thank you for clarifying. It's been a while.
it's,
Or auction.
Yeah.
Sealed bid or auction.
and the way these policies are written, it makes it sound like Mr. Ferks can do just anything he wants, he can. He still has to have the board, so as do I, so, yeah.
Any other questions on D? We have a couple more to review.
I think the only other question was, it was blank where it said for transportation about how many miles the students have to live within. Like it had all the different categories of.
Right now, our
levels,
policy is a
whatever.
mile, but I need to get some clarification. We had some
Okay, that was
we
my
had some
question.
connectivity issues yesterday during our Neola review, and we didn't get all the way through that one. So
Okay,
I can get a hold of Mr. Burkhart and get an update on that and have it for the next meeting.
okay. 'Cause I think most of us been in the impression that was sort of a state mandated limit
It
too.
is.
If
Anything
we
outside-
change that, I
it's a
think most of
mile.
us would be like.
Well, the state
That's a
mandate
treat.
is 2
2
miles.
miles.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's, you don't have to pick anybody up or transport any student that lives within 2 miles of the building. I know in areas such as ours where there isn't, it's not really safe, there's not sidewalks,
for
there's
sure.
not crosswalks, there, that typically that is reduced to 1.
Sure.
I mean, even in
Right.
Miamisburg, we had it reduced to 1 in some areas because it just
Right.
wasn't safe for kids
Absolutely.
to.
Is that something though that the
Across.
policy can say
Yeah,
something
one.
and our AG can say another though, where,
Let's check it.
You can't.
or you can set it each year?
You can do, yes, you can, but you can't do more than 2. Just can't, you can give them less than 2,
Oh, I
but
would
not
never
more,
want to
right?
do anything more than 2 anyway.
Because the state requires 2. It doesn't give you too much play, but yeah.
And that's only certain grades as well.
Okay, you don't even have to transport to school. You don't have to, legally, you're not, am I right or wrong?
That's correct.
I think legally, we're not required to transport 9 through 12 and preschool.
We don't.
Okay, I was just curious because it was blank and I just didn't know why. That was another law that had changed or something happened. So just curious. Thank you.
You're welcome. Letter E is review of a overnight extended field trip for the music department. Click on that one, heading to Disney World. So pretty cool opportunity for our high school music department to be able to go to Florida. Looks like spring break of 2023. So next spring. So thank you to Mrs. Wolford for getting that on the agenda very, very early. But as you know, all overnight field trips have to be approved by the school board. So on there has a little bit of an agenda and kind of what they're looking to accomplish, how many kids will be involved, where they'll all be going, and those types of things.
What I didn't know was okay, I see it. The ratio of chaperones to students, since there's about 100 students. That's gonna require a lot of chaperones. Then I saw they had like 4 to 6 per chaperone.
Yeah.
So
You don't get any shortage of people signing up.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
A lot of moms and dads that went to Florida.
okay.
Be a little different if they were going to Cincinnati in February.
Kind of itching to sign for that one myself, actually.
Is this pretty similar? Danny used to do a trip to Disney. Is this
We did.
pretty similar to what was done historically?
We did it 4 times.
So,
Every time that we went, we had to cut a day off because it kept getting more expensive and more expensive. We started out probably 5 nights, maybe 6 nights the first time for $600. Now a Disney pass costs $300, more than $300. And then 4 years later, we'd had to cut it to 5, and then 4 years later, we had to cut it to 4. So we just had to stay around the parks. I hope that they will take advantage of the educational opportunities there in terms of band playing and the recording studio, which is a really cool thing. It's a really educational time. I'm told that there are opportunities there for choir as well, doing that same kind of thing. So it really can be a very valuable and useful trip.
Thank you. And then finally, letter F is review of a request to, I guess, not necessarily adding a new one, but bring back a previous club that had been in the district. Green Team, which is kind of like an environmental type club. Where I think at one point here they were doing some recycling and doing things out at the
Nature area.
Yeah, the nature site on the west end of the school property in the woods. So Mrs. Gatrell had led the charge at one time, and I think she's got some student interest that she'd like to try to get the bring that stuff back.
Did it just stop because of COVID?
It was done before I was here.
It was.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
I'm not sure why.
Not either. I saw her during musical time because of makeup and things like that for students. I was just talking to her. She said she's had a number of students just beating down her door and talking to her regularly about, can we start this again? Can we start this again? The students are really incredibly interested in getting it up and moving and going again.
Okay.
So I wasn't surprised to see it on the agenda.
Yeah.
Well, and recycling kind of goes through peaks and valleys, and when it's cost effective, I think kind of the recycling kind of cluttered out because we couldn't recycle paper anymore effectively. There used to be a couple bins here, you know, depending on supply and demand and all that stuff, which I'm not versed in what the recycling markets are right now. I think that had an impact as well. I was thinking she also did something with, I thought it was DP&L, but that group would also be part of that, where they go and do special science stuff, but I can't seem to find it. I was looking on the Facebook page because I know we had a couple groups. It's probably been 2 or 3 years ago, but they take a group of students and do fun thing. It's with businesses, and it was can't remember where it was, but yes. Good.
Those are the items that I had on the agenda for review this evening.
All right, thank you. Other items for discussion? All right. That'll be executive.
I don't think it qualifies.
Of providing our attorneys information. Your attorney-client privilege.
Not in a form.
The I think we can confer with that and make a determination whether we cover.
Okay.
Executive session, I know, based on our little discussion, would be number 3. Also, based on an email from Lori, would be number 6 to discuss those specialized security arrangements. I have 1 for 1. Does anybody have any other items?
50% tonight. Woo.
That might almost a short meeting there.
Yeah.
We thought you said she said get out early and then boom.
Does as for executive session, we go for those. The question I would have is based on the items that we have, it'd be appropriate to invite the new board members to remain for executive session.
Since I'm not aware of it, I want to trust your judge.
Okay. All right, so a motion to go into executive session.
Almost.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie, for the second. Ms. Hagan, can you call the roll? Almost Ms. Mansfield, can you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese.
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian.
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
All right, time into executive session with our invited guests at 6:24 PM. Thank you for joining us.
Just for clarification, there's no business after, correct?
None of the items that I know of would
Not that we are
require
aware
action.
of. Yeah,
Okay.
not that we're aware of.
Thank you.